Chris?
All right, Bill. So I've been following you on Twitter. I follow your writing, and you have been the person I think most forthrightly pressing the case about wake up, wake up, wake up. The weather is telling us something. And I just want you to just start out by defending that as a legitimate, as essentially a legitimate deduction, right? Not as propaganda. Why is it different than the Drudge report showing, snowstorms in Washington, D.C.?
Look, I wrote the first book for a general audience about global warming 25 years ago now. And so I've gotten to follow this for a long time, and I know the science pretty well. What's amazing about what's happening now is that it's exactly what the climatologists have been telling us will happen, and exactly what's been happening with more and more regularity in more and more places around the world. 350.org works in every country on the planet except North Korea, so we have a pretty good sense all the time of what's happening, and it's the same kind of thing place after place. The real tell, though, here is that, even the people who used to fund this kind of climate denial are giving up on it. The CEO of Exxon gave a speech last week in which he said, yep, you're right, global warming's real. Now, he went on to say, but it's an engineering problem with engineering solutions, and we'll just move our crop production areas to some place where it's not so hot, which is ludicrous. But, that's the tell.
Right.
Anybody who pays any attention to this knows that physics and chemistry are carrying the day. And, as powerful as the right-wing talk machine is, it's not as powerful as physics and chemistry.
James Hansen, who, of course, is a legendary scientist and a pioneer in this field, we have this amazing testimony that he gave. This is him testifying the Senate Energy and Natural Resources Committee in 1988. And he says, we notice a clear tendency in our model for greater than average warming in the southeast United States and the Midwest. We conclude there is evidence the greenhouse effect increases the likelihood of heat wave drought situations in the southeast and Midwest United States. If our model is approximately correct, such situations may be more common in the next 10 to 15 years than they were in the period between 1950 and 1980. So there is this match now. You can go back and actually look at the record. How do you connect?
That's right.
How do you connect, Bill? I mean, this is the conversation we've been having here about, first of all, facing up to the fact that we are going to, this is what your book is about, that we are going to have, even if we get our butts in gear to reduce our carbon emissions, we're going to have a different looking Earth, a different climate and different weather. And how do you connect that to what's happening now for people to make that tangible? Because I think that's the frustration we all have in this conversation, is making it tangible.
Two mottos here. One, adapt to that which you can't prevent. Eric's right. You got to have cooling centers in big cities now because we're going to have heat waves and it's impossible to prevent that. Mantra two, prevent that to which you can't adapt. Everything that we're seeing around us now is the result of a planet that's warmed about 1 degree. But the same climatologists who told us that would happen tell us that unless we get off coal and gas and oil very, very quickly, that 1 degree will be 4 or 5 degrees before the century is out, much of it locked in very, very soon. And so we need, above all else, to be working desperately to turn off coal and gas and oil and move to renewable energy. It's not impossible thing to do. Technologically, we know how to do it. Last month, there was a day in which Germany generated more than half of its energy from solar panels within its borders. That shows me that we can do this technologically. What we lack is political will. That's why we build movements like 350.org. And, last year we managed to pull off the biggest civil disobedience action in 30 years in this country, at least temporarily, slow down construction of these pipelines to the vast tar sands of Canada. We're not strong enough yet, but we're getting stronger, and if we can build that movement, there's some chance of taking on not exactly the Republican right-wing talking machine, more getting at the people behind them, the wizards behind the curtain who are the guys who run the fossil fuel industry.
Bill, you say political will, but of course the problem is centered mainly in the Republican Party. When you wrote your first book, and a bit before that, the Republican Party had prominent conservationists, environmentalists who would speak out against the kind of rhetoric that's coming from the extreme right wing. But now the party establishment has really embraced those extreme views. What's the way of returning some sensible Republican thinking and talking and opinion leadership to American politics?
So two quick answers here. One, the Republican leadership will follow the day that the fossil fuel industry, that the Koch brothers and others feel the heat, and that's where we need to turn much of the heat. Second, we can figure out how to turn some of that political heat on. One of the things we're doing at 350.org this summer is a big campaign against the fossil fuel subsidies that the federal government pays out. It turns out that 80% of Americans, Republican, Democrat, and Independent, across the board, think that it's a poor idea to be giving federal money to the biggest, richest industry on the planet. Even without climate change, it's obnoxious that we're paying them a performance bonus to wreck the planet is really disgusting. And so that's a campaign that can begin to do some of this damage that we need to do.
Bill, I want to talk about this divide between meteorologists and climatologists too, and how that's playing out, particularly as we watch this weather disaster unfold before us. Stick around, and we'll talk about that right after the break.